Good evening, and thank you for tuning in today. And today, in about 45 to 60 short minutes, I'm going to try to identify the following about our lab industry. The purpose of today's meeting is to identify where our industry stands today, identify current trends, and determine what forces shape our industry, estimate what the future may hold, and determine what we can do to lead in a dynamic laboratory industry. As far as meeting preparation goes, today we examined trends at the I examined some trends at the Chicago Midwinter meeting. I attended the Cal Lab meeting. You can just turn that ringer off altogether. I attended the Cal Lab meeting. I spoke with CEOs and executives of many of the world's most prominent dental companies. I would take the time to list them all today, but I can tell you that most of them are with very high-profile companies, including Glidewell Dental Laboratories and executives at 3Shape and Nobel and 3M and so on. So it's my opinion that our industry is changing, or one could even say that it's undergoing a major transformation. Let's take a brief moment and examine where our industry has been historically to compare it to where we find ourselves today. The timeline of our lab industry is as follows. Dentists were the first lab technicians. Then dentists had an in-house assistant. The lab techs became a cottage industry. I apologize. I was thinking in advance about the phone that was ringing. The lab techs became a cottage industry, and it's very important here at this point in time. I want to comment on what is a cottage industry because it's going to play an important role as we talk about how the industry might be changing in general. A cottage industry is simply this: it's any business that exists commonly throughout a lot of different communities. Dentistry is a cottage industry. People wouldn't travel, say, 100 miles or 150 miles to see a dentist. Almost every community in America has a dentist, so you can actually say dentistry is a cottage industry. I just want to make sure that for the sake of definition that we all see it the exact same way. Gas stations as well would be considered a cottage industry. You don't have to travel 30 miles to go get gas for your car. Drugstores are or used to be a cottage industry. Hardware stores are or used to be, lumber yards used to be, grocery stores and general stores used to be, and in some cases they still are. So again, to define a cottage industry, it's any type of a business that can be found commonly throughout the United States where people locally have access to that particular business. So I'd like to discuss the timeline of the lab industry. Cottage industry develops and eventually turns into big box labs. So I can assure you that 30 years ago we didn't see what we would call a big box lab. That term big box comes from stores like Home Depot and Lowe's. But 30, 40 years ago we didn't see giant dental laboratories like we see today. So the cottage industry is developing into what we could call big box laboratories. Cottage industry is certainly under stress from overseas competition. So whereas a crown used to come locally, an impression would come locally to a community, it's now going overseas and being completed over there. Our cottage industry is also under stress from technology. So it's in my opinion that the last three items that I mentioned, the big box labs, China, and technology, have all contributed to the closure of over 7,000 dental labs in the past 7 years. We network with a company ourselves called Info USA, and they track data. They track about 14 million businesses in the United States, and about every 3 months, we actually get an updated disc on all 14 million businesses in the United States. And of course, from this, we're able to determine how many dentists are in the country and also how many laboratories are in the country. So Info USA, in their 2004 edition, told us that there were 17,300 dental laboratories in the United States. In this year, our 2011, the first edition of 2011, shows that we have 10,623 laboratories in the United States. So here's the good news and the bad news. Our industry is about a $1.4 billion industry. every year, each and every year. And primarily, most of the lab owners are just common folks, and many of them are small 1, 2, or 3-man laboratories. But as an industry, we're generating a lot of revenue at $1.4 billion. That's good news for us in that it has been a good industry to most folks as far as earning a living. But the bad news is this, is that a lot of people want to get their hands on that cash flow. So here's the general point. Throughout our history, we went out and we convinced the dentist to send us lab work. We could labor at the lab bench and then expect to be paid for our labor. Our fees would be based on our talent and service, and we only shared revenue with people who we would choose to share with, such as certain employees or a wide variety of supply companies to choose from. Changes in our industry are taking some of those freedoms and that flexibility away. So if 7,000 laboratories have closed their doors in the past 7 years, where's the work going? If the work was simply absorbed by the other local labs that have survived, then your business should be up 41% from 7 years ago. So let's take a look for a moment at some of the places where I believe that the work is going. Let's go into big box laboratories like Glidewell Dental Laboratory. Glidewell does over 50,000 crowns per month, and I have to admit, I might be confused on my data. It might be 50,000 crowns per week, but I think it is per month. He has over 80,000 dentists on his mailing list, and what that means is that almost 50% of all dentists in the country have sent Glidewell Dental Laboratories at least one case. And he's simply grown his business through traditional marketing methods. The work is also going to companies like Dentsply International. They're an opportunist that's exploiting the Chinese market. Everybody knows, it's old news. They opened a laboratory in China several years ago, and they used their sales force to convince doctors to buy a crown instead of from you, but to buy a crown from their laboratory that they have in China. They have an intact sales force, as I just mentioned, and that's what allows them to be able to pull something like that off. They're calling on your dentist, and again, as I said, to send work to their China lab. So where else is the work going? This is very interesting, and I just learned this recently. There's a company called Mogo Software, patient management software company. They're an opportunist. They have about 16,000 licensed dentist users who use their software, and they use that connection to reach out to those doctors and convince those doctors to send work to the China lab that Mogo Software now owns. So Mogo Software starts off as a software patient management company. They open a laboratory in China, and they now reach out to their 16,000 dentists, encouraging them to send work to China. So where else is the work going? Well, work's going to Patterson Dental Supply. Everybody knows Patterson Dental Supply was a supply company. That means they bought products at wholesale prices, they resold it to dentists at retail prices, and that's how they came into existence. They formed a partnership with Sirona. Patterson has a large intact sales force, and using technology, they're using technology to bring lab industry revenue to a supply company. So revenue that used to be going to our cottage industry, to individual laboratories, are now going to a supply company instead. This type of partnership program is really the challenge that we face. When I say challenges, it's because it's the most likely scenario that's going to influence how we run our businesses in the near future. But I'll go a little bit deeper on this as we move along through the program. So where else is the work going? Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing Company, a small company also known as 3M. Through acquisition of ESPE, 3M enters the dental market, and Lava Crowns bring revenue, again, from the lab industry to a company called 3M. Where else is the work going? Straumann Dental Implant Company. Through acquisition of the Econ brand, they add dental laboratory revenue to their dental implant company. So again, the point I'm making is they were a dental implant company. That's how they made all their money. And what they've done is they're now tapping into that $1.4 billion per year industry, our cottage industry known as the dental lab industry, and they now have a new revenue source. That money has to come from somewhere. It's not going to a lab technician somewhere, and it's coming to that company. And I'm not saying these things to be negative or beat up on any of these companies. I'm simply trying to draw a very clear scenario of what's happening in our industry. And so, again, Straumann has a large, intact sales force that allows them to sell direct to dentists. And of course, you must, if they're going to sell direct to a dentist and they're going to recommend a dentist use your lab, you have to be a preferred Straumann Etcon lab for them to refer a dentist to you. Where else is the lab going? Nobel Biocare, another dental implant company. And again, you know, Nobel is a sponsor of the America Smiles program. There's no animosity here or negativity here. I'm just trying again to paint a clear picture. Through their acquisition of Procera, they enter the dental laboratory market. Large intact sales force from selling implants for years, the world's largest, through their acquisition of Brandemark and the world's largest dental implant company. They have a significant sales force to reach directly to dentists. While the dental lab technician is sitting there working at the bench and he can't get out into the field, a Nobel sales rep has the ability to do that. So, and again, you must be a preferred Procera lab in order for Nobel to refer any dentist to you. So now we know the following. As far as where's the work going? Big box labs are absorbing some of the work from out of our cottage industry. We'll always have those. You can also, you can do the same with a commitment to marketing. I've said the only difference between Glidewell Dental Laboratories and any of our America Smiles members is marketing and advertising. And this definitely won't be our area of focus today. I'm not going to be focusing on big box dental labs. Okay, some of the other places that we determine it's going is opportunist, exploiting the China market. This will likely become less prevalent. I want to make a good point here for everyone who's scared to death of the China labs and all the work that's going to China. I can assure you this is going to become less prevalent as China is already experiencing some inflation. The value of the yuan is increasing. And technology is now competing directly against outsourcing. Jim Glidewell said himself at the Cal Lab meeting, he said, technology is bringing work back home to America. Unfortunately, it's not coming necessarily back to the small lab. It's going to our corporate leaders in our industry. This too will not be our area of focus today. I've said all that I'm going to say about outsourcing today. So the 800-pound gorilla in the room, I don't again intend that to sound negative, it's just it's a saying, is really it's the Patterson-Sirona combination, the 3M Lava, the Straumann Etcon, the Nobel Procera lineup. It's this lineup that I'm displaying here that I think is really most aggressively shaping our industry, and it's the pattern that we need to follow the most to make sure that we can remain intact, competitive, and in business. So none of these companies that I just noticed got their start in the dental lab industry, but all of them have come into our industry in the past 15 years to take market share from, again, what I call our cottage industry. We will focus today on how these technology networks are reshaping our industry and what it means to our labs. So, I'll provide an opinion here. So we see the traditional dental laboratory is under pressure and losing market share to big box labs, China labs, and technology networks. So if I've made the case to you today that our industry is in a state of flux and that the average lab is losing market share to a variety of outside forces, allow me now to move forward and discuss specifically how technology and technology partnerships are changing our industry. I hope we're all in agreement that you can't put technology back in the box. It is here to stay. That means that where we once made our money by laboring at the lab bench, we have to be prepared for the fact that technology is replacing our labor. The questions that remain are, how might our industry look a few years down the road, and what can we do to adjust? In this next segment, I want to cover the following. What changes have taken root? My English teacher would probably fail me for has taken root. What change has taken root and is most prevalent today? What technologies can we anticipate will bring about additional changes to our industry? And how does technology enter the dental market space? I'm going to repeat all three of these again because, again, if we're going to really have a good understanding of where we're going, we really have to understand the influences. So let's identify, back to number one, what change has taken root and is very prevalent today? What technologies can we anticipate to bring about additional change? How does technology enter the dental market space? That number 3, you might be thinking, well, who really cares? But it really is very important that we understand that, and I'm going to cover that in an additional segment here coming up shortly. And what is the influence of venture capitalists in dentistry? I'm going to teach you a little bit what venture capitalists are and what they're doing to influence our industry. And existing companies as network distribution partners. These companies that I've mentioned with Ney and Strawman and Patterson, we're referring to these companies as network distribution partners. They're really not inventing anything. They're not creating anything. They're acting as the distribution source. Now, these top 5 topics here are very important for us to understand the trends so that we can create effective business plans. So let's cover now what has taken root. And I'll pick up the pace a little bit here. CadCam technology, there's no doubt, there's no arguing, CadCam technology has taken root in our industry. It's been around for about 15 years now, or going back to 1997 with the introduction of Procera, and it's here and it's here to stay. Computer-aided design and milling of crown and bridge substructures is now common. It has eliminated the labor of the waxer, the investor, the caster, the metal finisher, and the opaquer. So nobody can dispute that CadCam technology is here and it's definitely here to stay. We mill a large variety of materials, and usage is expanding with the Brux ZR crown. I don't know how popular everyone knows that it is. Glidewell's selling, I think he said 5,000 a week if I'm not mistaken, or 5,000 a month, whatever the case is. But the Brux ZR crown, we can now successfully mill full contour crowns. So let's cover now the areas of technologies that are bringing additional change. And again, we're just going to touch on this shortly. We have the intraoral digital impression technology. It was a big to-do when 3M purchased Brontis, and everyone said how much this is going to change the industry. I do believe that this is going to absolutely change our industry, but I'm going to cover here a few slides from now that things happen slow in our industry, and that's actually to our benefit. There's now 4 major players in this market. I don't want to try to rattle them off the top of my head because I'll make a mistake and look silly. But we now have 4 major players that have intraoral digital impression technology, and I don't think it's going to be limited to 4. I think it's going to expand, and the more that come into the market, the better for us, certainly. If it was just 1 or 2, it's not to our advantage, but the more that come into the market, the better. Here's another area. You really want to pay attention to this. This technology is here. It's called rapid print prototyping. I actually spent several days, I should say several evenings at home, just investigating not just rapid print prototyping for the dental industry, but throughout other industries. I'm amazed to find out that you can take the lid off of a salt shaker, scan the salt shaker, scan the lid, and 20 minutes later have a working model, a plastic working model that screws the cap back on. So rapid print prototyping is a technology that's on the rise in all industries across the world, and it's coming here to America. And I will point out, in case I forget to mention another slide, there's a reason that Oregon, the world's largest alloy company, invested $700 million in rapid print prototyping. Antoine Wolf told me specifically that obviously the investment was because they see this as a wave in the future. So these technologies are definitely here. They're here to stay. The milling, the digital impressions, the rapid print prototyping, they may not all be mainstream yet, and there's a lot of naysayers. It'll take years, and dentists are never going to give up on traditional impressions, and that's fine. It may be years, but I can assure you the day is going to come when these products will be mainstream in our industry. Watching corporate moves can also help us predict the future. A little trick I learned a long time ago in investing in some real estate. If you want to know where to buy, look where some of the big companies are buying. If you see McDonald's going up somewhere, or you see a Home Depot going up somewhere, or any other franchise, they've already done the research. They have a confidence in the community, and that's why they're building there. So I make that point to say we can watch corporations within dentistry and see what moves they make, and that'll help us predict the future. Nobel and Patterson helped us predict the future of CadCam 14, 15 years ago. When Patterson partnered with Sirona and Nobel partnered with or acquired Procera, we can see that was a clue 14 years ago as to where the industry is going. Now, we'll admit that these products are now mainstream in our industry. 3M's purchase of Brontis about 3 or 4 years ago. Argon, again, as I mentioned, their purchase of rapid print prototype digital printers for metal copings is evidence of what the future holds. There's a, and again, I'm just mentioning there's a reason why Argon spent $700 million. These are multi-million, yay, even billion-dollar corporations who don't take any position unless they've researched the likeliness of them getting a return on their investment. Now, here's a very key part. I'm going to talk to you for a moment about how technology enters the dental market space. If you understand how it enters the market space, you'll understand why things happen the way that they do and what we need to do to adjust. Typically, technology comes from other industries. I'd like to say dentistry doesn't invent anything. Composites come from other industries. Just about everything that we use comes from other industries. Dentistry really doesn't invent anything. Opportunists see an opportunity within dentistry for their product or service. So somebody could be in another industry, a someone or a corporation can be in another industry, and they see an opportunity within dentistry, just like 3M. 3M was not in the dental market, and they purchased 3M SB. I'll have you know that the dental industry is a very attractive market. I think I mentioned that in a slide later for investors. It's a great place for them to invest because dentistry is actually a very strong industry. So opportunists see an opportunity within dentistry for their product or their service. It could be a big company or it could be a small individual. And what they do is if they're not a big company, if they're a smaller guy like the fellow who invented the Sirona system or the Cerex system, they get venture capitalists behind them. And venture capitalists, I'm going to talk about in a few slides later, describe to you who they are and what they do. But venture capitalist money comes in and supports the delivery of the product into our dental industry. And of course, then they network with large established dental companies as a conduit for the distribution of their product, service, or their idea. So let's use Sirona as our example. The Cerex system was developed by Dr. Werner Moorman. I couldn't get my little 2 dots over the O in his name, in Zurich, Switzerland. His research was actually funded by Vita and Ivoclar's European divisions. He partnered with a company called Siemens, which is now called Sirona, for the purpose of marketing. So Siemens was actually the marketing wing for this Dr. Moorman. And of course, then they partnered in the USA with Patterson for distribution. So the key factor here that we see is that there's at least 5 parties involved that have a vested interest here. They're interested in a return on their investment, and that investment is paid for by the labor hours that we relinquish to this technology. So I hope I've made that clear. When a technology enters the United States or enters the U.S. dental market, there's usually a variety of people or a variety of corporations that have a vested interest in this technology succeeding. Okay. They ensure their return on their investment by either introducing it as closed architecture, having licensing fees to use their product, dongle fees, or they lock in material sales, or all of the above, or maybe some of you will even tell me some of the other ways they do it. But you have to understand, when they deliver a technology, they want to be ensured that they get a return on their investment for delivering it. It's very important that we each understand the variety of techniques used to ensure that the developer, the investor, or the distributor, so you have the developer of the technology, the investor, the money behind it, and the distributor, this is the existing U.S. corporation, to lock in to ensure a payoff on their investment. 3M, Noble, and Straumann, and others use similar techniques. I didn't want to just single out Patterson, the supply company, but 3M, Noble, and Straumann have all used similar techniques to guarantee the future revenue stream for themselves and their investors. So I'll touch briefly on the influence of venture capitalists. Venture capitalists, they're all over the world. They've got large sums of money that people have invested with them. Their job is to find investment opportunities for their investment groups. They rightfully see dentistry as a growing and opportunistic industry. And they have the power to bring upstart technologies again, I'll say this again, they have the power to bring upstart technologies into our industry and make those technologies mainstream within our industry to their benefit, and typically, again, at our cost as we relinquish labor hours to technology. So, and then established companies acting as technology distributors. You know, Sorona went to Patterson, Brontis went to 3M, Procera went to Nobel, CadCam went to Straumann. So you can see these companies were looking for conduits to enter the market, and they went to very well-established dental companies. What all these companies have in common is they have a huge sales force to deliver the product. Okay, and then last but not least, recent news, 3Shape went to Horace Kulzer. The good news about this is I don't believe Horace Kulzer received an exclusive. I think that leaves the door open for other organizations to distribute the 3Shape scanner, intraoral digital scanners direct to dentists. So, why did the technology developers and those investment firms that back them choose the companies that they chose? And again, I continue to get a little ahead of myself. It's the sales force. They have, the big companies have a means to get the technology direct to the dentist. So, examining some of the trends. We see outside source desires to bring technology opportunity into the dental industry. Venture capitalist organizations finance the development of the product or service or the technology. And then an established dental company executes the distribution. This is based, I should have, instead of having bullet points, really had a three-step 1, 2, and 3. Again, there's a desire to bring the technology in, venture capitalist supports it, and an established dental company executes the distribution. So we've made several determinations so far. Technology is currently reducing labor hours at the bench. I keep saying that, and I know I'm repeating myself, but this trend is going to continue. We've all made our money sitting at a bench. We're losing that opportunity. Technology is taking that opportunity away from us. Future technologies will continue to further reduce bench time. Sponsors and investors of technologies will ensure their share of the pie at the cost or the expense of the average laboratory. If we put these trends together, all the trends that we've covered so far, if we put these trends together, can we get a picture of what the lab industry might look like in the future? Now, as I move forward with this, I'm going to admit not everyone's going to agree with me, and I'm not even making a statement that I'm right, but I just want to, I'm pointing out a generalization of what could it look like. You've got CAD-CAM technology is proven in our industry. We know that it's here and it's working and it's functioning well. Patterson and Sorona have proven they will bypass the dental lab if able. I don't want anybody to be deceived here at all. If any of these companies can bypass the laboratory and work directly with the dentist, they will in a heartbeat. Right now, it's just the dentists have not embraced that yet. So, intraoral digital scanners and rapid print prototyping are here and here to stay. The Bruxer crown, again, has proven that full contour crowns can be 100% created through CAD-CAM technology. It's very important that we realize that. As far as I know, there's no bench time involved. We can have an intraoral digital scan, we can have a rapid prototype model, and we can have a milled full contour crown, and all the technician has to do is slide that crown on the model and verify the fit. Investors will always ensure a return on their investment by controlling the technology. So, this next segment, what I'll try to do is I'll try to make an estimation of what the lab industry might look like in the future. I hope that I'm painting a clear picture. I know that in my own mind, I see all this is clear, and I'm trying to create a picture so that you can see that yes, all these things are very possible as far as their development. So I'm going to step in and discuss with you and give an opinion of what I suspect likely the lab industry could look. I mean, it'll look like in the future. I'm not saying a year from now, I'm not saying 5 years from now, even 10, but keeping our imagination open, I think all these things are very possible. So the lab of the future might have its own intraoral digital scanner. We now have 4 players on the market. There's more to come. It's reasonable to believe that the lab of the future might have its own intraoral scanner. It'll have its own design software, its own line of dental implants. I'm going to pause here just for a second. there's something very interesting happening in the dental implant market. There's a lot of amazing patents out there on excellent quality dental implants. Most patents are only good for 17 years. We're seeing a rapid expiration of patents on very, very, very good quality patents. There's rumors have it that there's a big box laboratory on the west coast of the United States that's actually developing their own line of implants. So I don't think we're going to be limited to seeing only 6, 7, 8 companies that sell implants. I think you're going to have we're going to see an explosion in that market. And the lab of the future might have its own milling, or more likely its own rapid print prototype system. And I'm talking about the ability to print a crown. If you look at how your inkjet printer works, or your laserjet printer works, it uses heat and material to lay down the ink. Well, rapid print prototyping does the same thing, and it's very reasonable to believe that we can print crowns in color. That means with a darker cervical shade and a high translucent shade at the incised ledge. It's very, very, very reasonable that rapid print prototyping one day will be able to take a shade of a single central on a young lady getting married next week and actually print out a crown that matches. Lab of the future might be 3M. Might be Nobel, might be Patterson, it might be Straumann. This is not a prediction, but just an exercise to survey the potential and or the possibilities. I just want everybody to reach out with their mind and say, hey, is this reasonable? Is it reasonable that the lab of the future could just be 3M, Nobel, Patterson, or Straumann, or maybe a dozen others? So far what we've been doing is we've been looking at trends from an industry standpoint. But the good news here is we can't forget about the dynamic of the individual dentist. To our benefit, dentists move slow, and they slow the advance of technologies. And I can assure you, if it wasn't for dentists being so slow to respond, we might all be in food lines today. So I see 3 possible scenarios. So now I'm switching gears and I'm looking at the dentist. All I've been talking about is our industry and what's happening in our industry. But let's pause for a moment. Let's look at the dynamic of the dentist, because we cannot forget that. Now we can even go a step further and look at the dynamic of the public and what's happening with governments that are broke and unions that are cutting back benefits and all that, but that's not for today's subject. I see 3 possible scenarios on how a dentist will satisfy their need in the future for dental restorations. This will assume a continued progression of technology. So I'm going to assume that technology is going to continue to progress and try to make an estimation of what a dentist might want from in terms of how they acquire their dental lab restorations. And I'm going to list them in order of least likely to most likely scenarios. So scenario number 1 is full circle back to an in-house lab. I opened up the session telling you that dentists were the very first lab technicians, and I'm suggesting that it might go back full circle. The dentist might scan, design, mill, and or most likely print in-house. They'll pay dongle fees or license fees or material fees to the owner of the technology. Again, those owners could be 3M, Straumann, and I'm just throwing names out there, not trying to paint these guys to be evil guys. They're not. I'm just facing the truth of what's taking place in our industry. So dentists might scan, design, mill, print, pay dongle fees or licenses to the owner of the technology. No traditional laboratory would be needed. Second likely scenario, the technology company themselves acting as the dental lab. The dentist will scan. The company that owns the technology, whoever those companies might be, will design, print a model, print or mill the final product, and deliver the product just like a traditional laboratory. It's just that it'll go direct to 3M or Nobel. And again, in this scenario, no traditional laboratory is needed. So they, and again, as I'm saying, who would these labs be? They might be all the previous big company names that I've mentioned. So number 3, which I believe is going to be the most likely scenario, it's going to be lab networking, dental labs networking with technology companies. So I believe that the dentist will scan their impression. Or for those of you who believe that that'll never become mainstream, the doctor will still take a traditional impression. But in any event, the traditional lab will design, likely print a model versus milling a model, and they'll actually go ahead and they'll print or mill the final dental restoration. The traditional lab will simply verify the fit and deliver it just like a traditional laboratory would. Of course, in this scenario, the dental lab, which is you, who partnered with the technology company, would share profits with the technology company, much the way that we see developing today. We see that today. Anytime if you have an Etcon system, you take a scan, you're paying Etcon, whatever you're paying them, or Straumann, $35, $40, $45, you're actually sharing your profits with a dental implant company. So I believe the last scenario is most likely, or maybe even some hybrid of 2 or 3. I think it's very reasonable that some of these big companies will act independently as dental laboratories. There's no reason why we couldn't. I can't see a reason why that can't happen. But here's the good news, is I think dentists will always want a third party for design and final fit verification. I think the idea, no matter how well technology advances, no matter what it brings us, I still think that the average dentist is not going to be comfortable doing the design and being responsible for the final fit. I think they enjoy, or they prefer to put that off and share the responsibility with somebody else. So I do believe the doctor will outsource the designs of the crowns. And of course, we're talking too, not just simple molars anymore. We're talking about for sophisticated units. But I think even the simple molars, the doctor's going to want a third party out, the design, the fabrication or milling, and then final fit verification. He wants to open a box, or she wants to open a box and have a crown that's going to slide right into the mouth just like they want to today. I believe we'll continue to see a decline in the number of laboratories. Again, over the past 7 years, we've gone from 17,000 to about 10,000 labs. So 7,000 laboratories have closed their door in 7 years. I think we're going to continue to see this trend. It may be reasonable, I don't have a crystal ball, that we may get down to as few as 500 dental laboratories across the country. And again, not a prediction, I just think that I see that as something reasonable. So I believe that labs in the future will, to some degree, give up their identity and they'll partner with a technology company. We'll be sharing our $1.4 billion a year cottage industry with other companies. We'll become more or less consultants and computer technicians. These are certainly not scare tactics. I'm not saying my goal here is to not be a downer and have people say, oh goodness, Keith is saying the industry's going away. The great news is dentists are slow to embrace anything. We all know that. We know that with the America Smiles program. But I want to just bring up a brief analogy. When a deer sees headlights of a car, it has a tendency to freeze and it does nothing. And that never works out well for the deer. And so all I'm suggesting is that we don't freeze. I'm suggesting that we embrace the technology, have an awareness, use wisdom, prudence, and actually, if we have an opportunity, let's actually lead the way. So this brings me to the solutions part of our program. And I want to examine two things, and I promise we're getting close to the end. I want to examine two final things. I want to examine what other industries have done, and when they've come across similar circumstances, and then I want to play the what if game for a little while. So we all know that when we were kids, that there were the following stores in our neighborhood. When I grew up, our neighborhood had a grocery store, we had a pharmacy, we had a hardware store, maybe even a lumber yard. Most communities throughout America all enjoyed having those types of stores. But we know that the grocery store is now a super Walmart. You can go to your super Walmart and you can buy all the groceries there that you need. I think my wife shops at Target and does most of her grocery shopping at Target now. The local pharmacy guy that used to have a soda fountain and so on and so forth, now that's a Walgreens. The hardware store owner. When I was a kid, I remember Steve's Hardware Store. Well, now all the hardware stores are part of a franchise, which is Ace or True Value. The lumber yards are now Home Depot or Lowe's. But in most of these industries, they were independent cottage industries, just a lot like the lab industry was, but the store owners had to make adjustments to survive. So let me briefly go over some of those adjustments. The grocery store owners, they responded with what's called a certified grocers network in order to remain competitive. You can open up a grocery store in any community today, become part of the certified grocers network. It gives you certain marketing power and it gives you certain purchasing power. Actually sort of similar to what we do with America Smiles as well. The pharmacists, very interesting story. The pharmacists just flat blew it. They tried to organize, but their attempt was too late. Today, Walgreens and CVS pharmacies rule the day. Hardware stores owners, another interesting story. Typically it was just Steve's Hardware, or I remember in my first dental lab location it was Handy Hardware was the local hardware store we went to. Well, today they found wisdom in purchasing into a franchise. So now they're Tom's Ace Hardware or Tom's True Value Hardware. They maintain store ownership, but they have to operate according to franchise rules, and then they have to pay a percentage of their sales back to corporate. So I like to say the lumber yards are my heroes, and matter of fact, I think if I didn't live in Crete, Illinois, I might not have learned this little fact. Lumber yards created what they call their do-it-best network, and it's kind of interesting how they're structured. The lumber yard / hardware store, because they typically sell both hardware and lumber, they're able to maintain their own identity. They equally own a portion of the do-it-best network as shareholders of the do-it-best corporation. So where I buy my lumber and hardware here in Crete, Illinois, the company is called Crete Lumber, but they also happen to be a do-it-best center, which means that they're also part or equal owners in the do-it-best corporation. So, I like to say of all the business models that I've seen, I've talked to the owners over there, I find that to be a pretty creative business model. So that brings me to the what if part of our video here. What if a group of laboratories own their own technology company? We already know that design and milling are already playing a huge role in our industry. Many, if not all, America Smiles lab members are outsourcing milling of some sort to a central milling center. Even if you have your own CEREC unit or your own milling unit, you're still outsourcing something to someone, and at least that's the feedback that I get from most of our America Smiles members. So here's my vision. What if we actually started a central milling company with the America Smiles lab members as the owners, similar to the do-it-best system? We start simply by milling ZR. It doesn't take a lot of money to purchase an excellent quality milling unit. Matter of fact, I'm already flying to California next month to go look at a unit in preparation for this. The main benefit is if we started a milling company where the America Smiles lab members were the owners, is the main benefit is you'd be sending files and paying coping fees to a company that you already own. So instead of sending checks or paying for your coping fees to a company that you don't own, you're sending that money to a company that you do own. And without going real deep, there are certain tax benefits to getting a rebate or to getting a dividend as opposed to getting an initial tax write-off. So I envision a milling center opening up simply with just to offer zirconia copings, charging maybe as little as $35 per unit. And before you get too excited, I think it can get even better than that. The vision that I have is for every unit that you send to the company that you own, we can also issue you a $10 marketing credit. So basically every 40 units that you send, you would accumulate $400 in marketing dollars. Here's why the idea of the marketing credit. After 7 years of running the America Smiles program, one of the most common comments that I get about the program is the labs will say, you know what, we love your vision, we love what you're doing, we just don't have time to get out and market it. We just don't have time to get out and explain it to our doctors. Well, what I've been doing here the past month is I've actually been working with a professional salesperson, a person who went to school for sales and marketing and has had jobs in sales and marketing for several years. I've been working with them to teach them about the America Smiles program. And what they've been doing, this gentleman's been doing is calling dentists on behalf of a certain select group of labs that I've given to him. And when he calls dentists on behalf of this lab, his message is real simple. He introduces himself and he schedules a lunch appointment for the owner of that lab to come out and show samples of the lab owner's work. And the lab owner takes a PowerPoint presentation that displays the marketing benefits of the America Smiles program for the dentist. The PowerPoint presentation that the lab owner brings into the doctor shows the doctor the advantage of being listed on americasmiles.com, the $10,000 cosmetic dental grant program, the patient satisfaction survey, Keep Your Smile White for Life, My Dental Tour, and the AMS Rewards program. The main reason for creating the milling center, though, is not just so that we can get our coping costs down to $25 per unit. That's not the goal. I want you to understand the real power behind this opportunity, but to show that we're united on the technology front. Just as 3Shape went to Horaeus Kulzer and they said, hey, listen, we've got this new intraoral scanner. We're looking for a distribution method. We want to reach the 160 or 180,000 dentists in America. Horace Culture says we're the people for the job. We've got a sales force. Give us the right to distribute this product, and we'll go out and reach it. What we want is we want the next opportunist or other opportunists that are out there today bringing technology into the dental industry to see our lab group is a viable distribution network. And I'll pause here for a second. The attention that I've gotten just because of the America Smiles marketing group, technically if you wanted to describe who we are, we're a marketing group. We have 150, 175 labs all in the same marketing program at the same time. Basically, we're a marketing group. Recently this year, we started buying products at wholesale prices, so now actually we're a cooperative purchasing group as well. So when we have people organized, we want the next venture capitalist to see our group as a viable distribution network. We want to control our own destiny without being told whose technology we have to join if we want dentists to work with us. I realistically see the following very reasonable and possible solution, and I'm going to spell out what I envision that this organization actually can do. So the AMS Technology Center is I'm affectionately calling it. It could be a milling center that's wholly owned by America Smiles lab members. There could be a day when we own or distribute our own intraoral digital impression scanner. There can be a day when we own our own design software, our own printed model system. Our own brand is popular as lava. It's reasonable that we can have a sales force as large as Henry Schein. And our own line of dental implants. As I said, with all these implants patents that are expiring, there's no reason we can't have our own line of dental implants. A $1.4 billion industry could still be controlled by a network of dental laboratories throughout the nation instead of a few large corporations. So a question I ask, have we been on the right track so far? Ever since I've declined several offers from a few large companies that wanted to buy the America Smiles brand, it's kind of funny that no fewer than 3 major dental companies have now created their own patient referral directories, basically a copycat of americasmiles.com. The problem is that you can't find them online, and it has to do with us getting started at the right time, having the right SEO plan, and so on and so forth. But the fact of the matter is, after I declined to sell to them, they went off and they tried to compete directly. Another example of being on the right track so far. A venture capitalist company just purchased National Dentex, the whole body group of labs. One of their first moves was to start buying lab supplies wholesale direct and distribute to NDX members at wholesale cost. So the thing that I like to say is not only is imitation a great form of flattery, but it's also validation. So I hope I was able to paint a clear picture for you today. My goal was to take an honest look at where we stand in our industry today and take an honest look at where we might be heading. I wanted to present reasonable arguments for why we should come together and form a technology company with you, the America Smiles lab members, as the legitimate owners and the shareholders of this new company. I hope this broadcast will motivate you to embrace the change that is coming and be proactive instead of reactive. At the end of this broadcast, I'll be sending you an email with a survey so I can get some of your feedback. Please complete the survey at your earliest possible opportunity. And at this time, I want to thank you for your time and ask that you forward any questions to my email address, which is keith@americasmiles.com. Thank you for watching and have a good night.